Come on, it's good to be here at Fountain, and it smells good everywhere I go. I mean, come on, I just, I thought to myself, I don't think anyone will notice, but Pastor did, so I had to confess and come clean. I'm so glad to be with you. I'm so glad to be back here at Fountain. How many of you glad to be in church today? It's good to be here. All right, do me a favor, look at your neighbor and just talk to him. Say, neighbor. Okay, do a little better. Act like you like this person. You chose to sit next to them. Let's try it again. We'll start all over. Look at your neighbor. Say, neighbor, it's an honor to sit next to you. See, that was good. That was good. Now look at your other neighbor, the one you just ignored a moment ago. Look at your other neighbor. Say, other neighbor, it's an honor for you to sit next to me. Yes, it is. You must be living right. You got a neighbor upgrade when you came to church today. This might be the best day you've ever had, maybe, possibly. So, man, thrilled to be here and love the Fountain of Life family. And obviously, Pastor, I guess we're connected now through what God has done in many ways. And so my heart always leaps at the opportunity to be here. So for those of you that maybe we have not had the chance to meet one another, I do want to introduce by way of photo the most important people in my life. So they're going to put a photo there up on the screen. This is my family. You missed your moment. You're supposed to go, oh, okay, there you go. My wife, Julie, and I in the middle. In just a couple weeks, we celebrate our 29th year of marriage. Let's go, come on. Woo! And then on the right of the picture, to the right of my wife, that is our son Caleb, our oldest, and his wife Jessica. And we got, since the last time we were with you, the family has grown. We have these grandkids now. They're amazing. That's Heather James. That's Levi John. Heather is 4. Levi is 2. Right beside me, that is our, right there to my right in the picture, that's Ellie. She's the baby of our family. How many of you are the babies of your family? This is your moment. Represent. Come on, you've been trying to draw attention to yourself your whole life. Just come. I say this because I'm the baby of my family. Did you know the Bible says the babies of the family are the best members of the family? The best looking members of the family? That was for you, Matt, okay? And Matt was making fun of my haircut this morning. He said my head was too shiny. I said, Matt, this is called a matte finish on the top of my head. So I don't know, I'm not trying to be prophetic, but it happens when I come to Fountain, apparently. So Matt's like, I do not receive. So Ellie is a junior in college in Nashville, Tennessee at a ministry school called the Belonging Co. School of Ministry, and she's studying missions and worship there. And then Emma is right beside her sister. Emma is the middle of our three, and Emma just joined the staff at our home church, Allison Park Church. She's part-time staff in our youth department. Matt, she's following in my footsteps as a youth pastor. Let's go. And the family is growing because earlier this year in May, we added grandbaby number 3. This is Molly Brooke. Next picture there. You got it right that time. So that's Molly Brooke, and so she came and joined the family May 20. So our son and his wife Jessica, they have 3 kids now. So we just can't even believe it. We're from Pittsburgh. I'm a Steelers fan. Don't hold that against me. I'm sorry. It's been a rough week for the Eagles. Actually, I'm not sorry because I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. But we love each other nonetheless. So, I'm honored to be here. And as Pastor Russ mentioned, so a part of what we do in ministry now, we wear a couple different hats. We have a strong partnership with our home church. We teach some classes in their school ministry. And we run Lead the Generation. Let me say thank you for your generosity to Kingdom Builders, because you've been supporting our ministry for many years now. And so I'm coming to you not just as an evangelist today, but also as a missionary in a sense, and saying thank you for your generosity. It's making a huge difference. We're bringing our conference back next year. It'll be our 10th anniversary, our 10th conference in Reading, Pennsylvania. Excited to have a crew from Fountain there with us. It's going to be amazing. But I travel quite a bit, and so I'll give you a little story here. It'll take us into the word that we're going to share today. But so I travel quite a bit. A couple years ago, I was kind of in a busy week of traveling, 3 days in a row, different bookings, different cities, different hotels every night. And this was a moment not too long, maybe a year or so after those wonderful 2020 years of COVID. How many of you remember? You're trying to forget still, but and so there's the mask mandate. It's still in effect, and so I'm pulling into the hotel on the 3rd day of travel to check in. And I'm tired. I got to speak that night. I just want to get in quick, get a nap, and then head off to the service. And I put my mask on, I walk in, and the gentleman behind the desk has his mask on, and we also had the added protection of the bulletproof glass thing. Did you guys do that here in Jersey? I don't know where that came from, who thought that was a great idea, but we're safe now, okay? And so I'm checking in. Hey, my name's Eran. I'm checking in. My friend Ryan, who's hosting me, he made the reservation. He's covered everything, it's all good, just, and so he's looking away. He finds, all the information. And so it's going real smooth. And just before he goes to kind of slide the key card across the desk at me, he says to me, hey, I just need you to swipe your credit card and pay for the room. And I paused and I said, oh man, I'm sorry. It must be some confusion here. Ryan actually already covered it. It's all good. You just check there and your computer and everything's taken care of. He told me he took care of everything already. And have you ever had a moment and you're interacting with somebody and you don't know exactly what you said or what you did, but it triggered a very different mood, right? It's like everything just changed in this moment. And so I thought we were friends, even with the mask and the glass. I thought we were doing good. And I don't know exactly what happened, but when I said, hey, it's already covered, he just, explained it to him. He looked at me and he just said, well, you didn't tell me that. And I'm like, I'm sorry. He's like, you didn't tell me that. You should have told me that sooner. You should have led with that, man. You should have just said that right at the beginning. He's like, it's too late now. And I'm like, what do you mean it's too late now? He said, it's too late now. I've already passed that point on my computer. If I go back on my computer, it erases the reservation. So now it's your fault that this happened. And so you're going to have to pay for the room. And I'm thinking like, what you talking about, Willis? Like that's what I wanted to say. And so I probably should have said that because what came out of my mouth made things worse because what I said to him was, hey man, it sounds to me like you're saying that it's my fault that you pressed the wrong button on your computer. And as you can imagine, that didn't go over very well in that moment. And so everything escalated from this point forward and it was not a pleasant conversation. And he started accusing me of making up, an imaginary friend named Ryan who was trying to pay for my room. And then I called my imaginary friend Ryan on the phone and actually, and so this whole thing's going down. It's not pleasant, but we finally make it to the end of this little intense moment here. We got it all squared away, and he is now sliding the key card across the table at me. And all I really need to do at this point is keep my mouth shut and take the card. Is there anyone here at Fountain that is like me and you like to have the last word in most situations, right? Oh, come on. Okay, so how many of you always send the last text message, no matter what it is? Like you're like the human version of read receipt on a phone. It's like you're just like, so I just couldn't resist. I had to get one more in there. And so I looked at him and I said, as I'm taking the card, I said, so hey, just to confirm, all of this drama that we've had here tonight, all of this is all my fault, right? And he looked at me and he just simply said, confirmed. At which point I realized I completely lost the argument and I'm mad now just because I lost really, and I grabbed the key card and I go storming off to my room because I need to take a nap because I'm gonna go preach to people about Jesus in a couple hours. And so after I finally settle down a little bit, I become very embarrassed by what I have just been a part of. And when I leave the hotel and a couple hours later, I go out the back door because I don't really ever want to see Mr. Confirmed again at this point. I go to the service, I come home, and now, not home, I come back to the hotel, and now I'm very tired at this point. And as I'm pulling into the parking lot, all of a sudden, in my exhaustion, I come to the realization that I have been in 3 different hotels and 3 different hotel rooms with 3 different hotel numbers in the last 3 days. And I can no longer remember my current hotel room number. And I don't have the sleeve that has the number on it, just the key card. At which point I think to myself, if Mr. Confirmed is still on his shift, then I'm gonna have to talk to this man. And then I think, I'm not talking to him. Jesus, I love you. I'm not talking to him. I will go through every door in this hotel room. So as I walk into the hotel, there's my wonderful friend. He's right there. And as soon as he sees me, he starts talking to me. He says, excuse me, sir, could you come over to the desk real quick? I just need to talk to you real quick. Could you come over to the desk real quick? And of course, I'm thinking like, well, here we go, round 2. All right, like we on like Donkey Kong here. It's happening right now. And I walk up to the desk and he looks at me and he just says, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. why are you being sympathetic towards this man? You're all like, oh, that was louder than my family pictures. Come on. I was like, he says, I just want to say I'm sorry. And he said, I was thinking about our interaction this afternoon, and I didn't handle that very well. And then he says this, he says, I kind of feel like I was a bit of a jerk. And can I tell you how much Jesus had to be inside of me to not simply respond by saying, confirmed? How many of you would have done it? How many of you would have been like, I'd have said it so fast. I would have dropped it and just, so have you ever been in a moment where you are completely annoyed, right? You are annoyed because you tried to tell another person, a friend, right? You tried to tell them, a child, a teenager, you tried to tell them what needed to happen in the moment, and they just would not listen to you. Have you ever been in a moment like this? Okay, every wife is thinking about her husband right now, I know. Every parent of a middle school or teenage boy is thinking about the last conversation they had with them. Every young adult is thinking about the conversation they just had when they said to their friend, I'm telling you, don't date him. Like, don't date. So we've all been in these moments. Okay, we're going to study together from Acts 27 and 28. And in this text that we're going to be in, the Apostle Paul, who's the central character of our text, he's annoyed. He's annoyed because he tried to tell his companions, his travel companions in this text, he tried to tell them what needed to happen and what should not happen and what should happen and so on based on his experience, and they just wouldn't listen to him. Okay, so join with me here. Let me read to you for just a couple moments. We're going to be in Acts 27, so you can turn there in your Bible. You got a Bible? That's great. How many of you got a real Bible? You got the old school, leather bound, initials on it. Nice. How many of you are super cool? You got your iPhone, that's great. You can go there too. If you got your Android, that's just put it away. That's embarrassing, actually. That was also for Pastor Matt, by the way. My only friend who sends me green text messages. Like that's it. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna read from Acts 27. We'll pick up in verse number 21. There'll be help on the screen as well. Let me give you just a little context real quick just before we jump in, just so you kind of understand, because we're going to pick up in the middle of the story, right? So here's what has transpired. In Acts chapter 20, the Apostle Paul has felt very led and called by God to preach the gospel in Rome. In part, he wants to go to Rome because at this point he's already written the letter of Romans to the Roman church. And so he really wants to make a follow-up trip there. And so Paul has had an extraordinary season of ministry. At this point, he's already planted close to a dozen churches. He's already written probably 6 or 7 of the letters that are in the New Testament, including the book of Romans. And in Acts 20, God says, go to Rome. He endeavors to do so. He finds himself captured, almost beaten. He appeals to Caesar because he's a Roman citizen, and he finds himself now on the way to Rome on a boat, albeit not in a luxury cruise situation. He actually finds himself as a prisoner. And so Paul is a prisoner with other prisoners. He has centurion guards that are there on the boat, and there's also a group of sailors on the boat. And Paul, earlier in Acts 27, has actually tried to convince the captain of the ship, this is a bad time to sail. We don't want to leave port at this point. I've been on the seas a lot is what he's trying to say. I've done a lot of travel. I have a lot of frequent flyer miles. Just trust me, you don't want to leave now. We got some weather conditions here. And they looked at Paul apparently and they said, you're a preacher, I'm a sailor. We're going to go and we're going to do what I want to do. And they find themselves in the middle of a furious storm, a storm so significant in this text that the sailors have done everything they could to lighten the load of the ship. They've thrown over the tackle, they've thrown over the food, all the gear. They've wrapped ropes around the boat. All of this you read earlier in Acts chapter 27. And so they're in a difficult situation. No, not just difficult situation. They're in a situation that it looks as if the ship is going down. There's no hope, there's no answers, there's no solutions. And then Paul steps up, and this is what he says, Acts 27:21, follow along with me. After they had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, men, you should have taken my advice. I love the Apostle Paul. He's a very spiritual man, but apparently not so spiritual. He's unwilling to say, I told you so. Okay. You should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourself this damage and loss. There's already been great damage. There's already been great loss. Verse 22, but now I urge you to keep up your courage because not one of you will be lost, only the ship will be destroyed. Apparently that's encouraging. They're on the ship, right, when he says this. Verse 23, last night an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve stood beside me and said, do not be afraid, Paul, you must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with me. This is the moment when Paul looks at everybody and he says, you should be glad that I'm on this boat. I was getting on a plane earlier this year, and it was, if you follow the news at all, you might have caught some of the news. I was getting on a plane about a week after all of those crazy plane things happened. Like we had the one plane that landed upside down in Canada, you know, and I'm getting on a plane from the same airline. And so as I'm getting on the plane, I do this anyways, but I took a little extra time. I laid hands on the plane. Don't you laugh at me. You should do this too. And so I'm like, Lord, you just bless this. And so I'm taking a little bit too long. And the guy behind me is like, excuse me, sir. And I didn't say this, but I wanted to say, bro, you should be glad I'm on this plane. I'm just letting you should be glad that I'm, okay, this is what Paul's doing here in this moment. God's graciously giving you the lives of all who sail with you. Verse number 25. So keep your courage, man, or keep up your courage, man, for I have faith in God. That's going to be our central phrase in our talk today. Everyone say, I have faith in God. Look at your neighbor, say, I have faith in God. I have faith in God. It will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island. I think that he's trying to be hopeful here. It doesn't sound very hopeful to me. The ship's going to go down. We're all going to be good. But pick your piece of wood that you're going to hold on to now. That's basically, what he's saying here in this moment. He says, I have faith in God. Say it with me one more time. I have faith in God. I think that this text brilliantly illustrates a couple significant moments of teaching related to faith and how faith looks in Paul's life and how faith looks in our life. We're going to study this passage here together. We'll make our way actually into Acts 28 here in a moment, and we'll kind of look at Paul's whole journey and how faith leads him through this entire experience. But if you're taking notes, I have faith in God, or you could write this down, faith moves. And we're going to talk about 3 different ways that faith moves us, all kind of extracted here from the text in this moment. Let me give you the first one real quick. Here it is. Faith moves us from reason to revelation. Faith moves us from reason to revelation. Pastor, where do you see that in the text? Well, I mean, they've been in stormy waters for weeks. It's not just stormy waters, it's a fierce storm. They have no food, they have no tackle, they have no ability really at this point to steer or guide the ship. Everything in their logical thinking, everything in their reason would say, this ship is going down at this moment. There's no hope left. We've tried everything. We made a mistake. We should have checked the weather app before we left, right? We should have listened to this preacher who has some frequent flyer miles related to sailing. Like, we should have done the right thing, but that's in the past now. And so the ship is going down. And then Paul, he makes this statement, which we're studying. He says, I have faith in God. That's faith that moves us from a place of reason to a place of revelation. That's faith that moves us from a place of logical thinking to a place of theological thinking. This is actually what the way my dad would say it. My dad pastored for almost 45 years, so I'm a PK, pastor's kid. Do we got any pastor's kids here? Any PKs in the house? Okay, cool, yeah. I love PKs. I'm a PK. I think PKs are kind of weird. It's just I'm one of them, so I feel like I can say that. Maybe not as weird as homeschoolers, but probably pretty close. I homeschooled my kids too, so I'm okay. I have permission to use these jokes. But my dad used to always say this about faith in his preaching. He would say, faith is not always logical. However, it is not illogical, it's theological. This is what Paul's teaching us about faith too. A.W. Tozer said it like this. He said, faith doesn't contradict reason, it soars above it. It soars. So here's Paul, and he's actually modeling for the soldiers and the sailors on the boat. He says, I have faith in God. I love the way he phrases it. He says, the God whom I serve and whom I believe in. Paul's probably, even in this moment, even in the middle of a storm, Paul is still trying to be an evangelist. I love this about Paul, because Paul recognizes that all of these soldiers and sailors would have had different gods that they had pledged their allegiance to. In fact, he probably had observed all of the sailors in particular offering sacrifices to whatever god of the ocean that they served, in order to maybe appease the storm. And so now Paul steps into the situation and he says, I have faith in God. This is the God that I serve. And here's what Paul's teaching about faith. He's saying your faith moves you from reason to revelation. It moves me from a logical way of thinking to a soaring above revelation seated way of thinking in this moment. Paul's basically saying like this: it's not what you know, it's who you know. Right? It's not what you've placed your faith in, it's who you have placed your faith in. If Paul could say it this way, he'd say it like this: the strength of your faith is determined by the one in whom you have placed your faith. This is what Paul's saying. When I was a boy, I grew up all my life playing basketball, middle school, high school, college. Met my wife, Julie, at the University of Valley Forge. We were both student athletes there. I played 4 years of college basketball there. But when I was a middle schooler, we got a brand new youth pastor at the church, Pastor Rick. He loved to play basketball. And so I would just go out with him all the time and we would play. And so one Sunday he said to me, Aaron, tomorrow after school, I'm gonna pick you up. We're gonna go play ball. We'll just go out to a park somewhere. We'll find some other players and we'll play ball. This is great. Let's do it. This is before the days of like cell phones and text messaging and Life 360, where parents can track every movement of their kid. I still do this to my daughter Ellie, who's in Nashville. It's like okay. And so I never told my parents. I just forgot. I didn't think. I thought I'm gonna be with Pastor Rick. What does it really matter? And so I never got back on the school bus after school. Jumped in the car with Rick. We went and played ball. The school bus comes by my house. I don't get off the school bus. My mom and dad are like, where's our son? They don't know. They call the school. They said, yeah, he was in school today. We don't know where he went. They call the bus company. They said, well, he never got back on the bus. They get worried. They don't know where I'm at. They drive to the school. They're looking, all over. They can't find me. And they go home and they're worried. They start having a prayer meeting, I think, in the house. I mean, they're sitting there. They have no idea. They're calling my sisters. I mean, whatever the whole deal. I come home a couple hours later. And, so school boy, hot, tired, sweaty, smelly. I smell good today, but I didn't smell back then, And so immediately upon coming through the door of my house, I hear my father's deep, commanding voice. Where were you? Right? And at this point, I'm realizing there's some kind of problem, but I'm not exactly sure. Now I'm like, I was playing ball with Pastor Rick, and then, they begin to, you never told us, we were worried about you, we called the bus company, we went to the school, on and on and on. Okay, obviously by the opening story, I don't always handle social situations well. And obviously that comes all the way from my childhood coming up. I did not handle this situation well. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember what I said to my father. I'm sure it was somewhat sarcastic and offensive at this point. Here's the way that I know this: because I've never seen that man move as fast as he moved, getting off the couch and coming towards me. At which point I ran to our dining room, because there is a large circular table there, and I knew that I could outmaneuver him, and he's yelling at the top of his lungs, I am your father. It's almost as if the spirit of Darth Vader had come over him, and he's like, you better get a revelation of who I am. Oh, okay, hang on now, church. This is what Paul's saying in the text. You better get a revelation of who your heavenly Father is when you find yourself in a storm. Because your life doesn't work well by your own reasoning, your own intellect, your own logic. It works best when you have a revelation of who your heavenly Father is and the strength of your faith that comes from the one in whom you have placed your faith. I love the way Dr. Tony Evans, he defines faith like this. He says, faith is when you and I act like everything God said in his word is true, even if we don't understand it. It's when we act like, it's a function of our behavior. It's a function of our actions. So what does that mean? It means that faith is not a feeling. It means that faith is not good vibes, right? Faith is not optimistic thinking. It can lead to optimistic thinking, yes. It can lead to good feeling, sure. But in and of itself, that's not your faith. Your faith, James said, faith without works is, yeah. So Dr. Tony Evans says, faith is when you act like it. It's when you don't just think like it, you don't just feel like, you act like. You put steps into your faith. This is what Paul is doing. He could have kept it all to himself, but he's acting on it, and he's saying to the soldiers and he's saying to the sailors, I have faith in God. My faith is moving me from reason, which says this ship is going down and we're all in a difficult situation, to a place of revelation. God's got something for us. God's prepared something for us. God's preparing us for what he's prepared for us. My faith and the strength of my faith is not in this ship. It's not in the captain of the ship. It's not in the soldiers or sailors. It's not even in my ability to swim. The strength of my faith is found in the one in whom I placed my faith. It's in action. And so Paul models this for us in the text. He says, your faith should move you from reason to revelation. But Paul's journey is not over yet. There's more to learn here. So flip over with me to Acts chapter 28. We're going to skip a couple verses here, and we're going to go to Acts chapter 28. Okay, now the ship has gone down. And they have all found themselves with, I don't know, life preservers or swimmies or whatever they got, and they find themselves swimming their way onto a remote island. I have no idea where they're at, somewhere in the Mediterranean, and this is what we discover in Acts chapter 28, verses 1 and 2. Once safely on shore, we found out that the island was called Malta. Everyone say Malta. The islanders showed us unusual kindness, and they built a fire, and they welcomed all of us because it was raining and it was cold. Malta. They find themselves on an island called Malta. Have you ever been to Malta? Have you ever been to Malta? You're thinking of the actual destination. I'm thinking a little different here. Malta. Have you ever been to Malta? That place that you ended up in life that you were not planning on ending up in life. Have you ever been to Malta? Malta, that unexpected season that you didn't see coming. Anyone been to Malta? The unexpected layoff or the loss of job, Malta. The downturn in the economy, Malta. The diagnosis from the doctor that you never saw coming, or you saw it happen in other people's lives, but you never thought it would happen in your life or in the life of one that you love. Malta. Has anyone ever been to Malta? That unexpected season of grief and loss that you were thrust into. Has anyone ever been to Malta? Yeah. Dare I say, that unexpected fire that created great loss and great heartache. Oh, we've all been to Malta, have we not? Yeah. So Paul, yes, it's a physical destination. Yes, Malta, it's an actual, literal, physical island. It's a tourist destination now. You could go there if you want. But for the sake of this text and what Paul's teaching us about faith, let's see how Paul responds when he finds himself on the island of Malta. This is not where he wanted to go. This was not his ultimate destination. We established earlier that Paul was on his way to Rome. He wants to go to Rome because he wants to preach the gospel to Rome, because Paul understands that at this moment in antiquity, Rome is the most influential city in the entire world. And should Paul be permitted to go to Rome, strengthen the church that's already started there, and follow up on the correspondence, the book of Romans that he's already sent them, should Paul be able to go to Rome and preach the gospel to Caesar himself, Paul is hopeful that this right here could maybe spark some kind of worldwide revival. Paul wants to be in Rome. He's called to go to Rome. He is headed to Rome. He's the Apostle Paul. I mean, if this was happening in today's culture, we would say he's a famous preacher. He's got followers. He's got a huge TikTok and Instagram following. He's got it all going on. This is Paul. He ultimately writes 2/3 of the New Testament. He's already written 6 or 7 of those books at this point. He's already planted a half dozen churches on 3 different missionary journeys. He's on his way to Rome. And he finds himself on Malta. This is not where I wanted to be. This is not what I was intending for my life. This wasn't the plan for my future. I didn't think I was going to be single this long. I didn't think I was going to have this disability. I didn't think I was going to have these financial hardships. I wasn't really prepared or thinking that I would face a Malta season in my life. Let's learn from Paul here, because let's go back to the text. Here's what Paul teaches us here in this moment. At 28 verses 3 and 4. Paul gathered a pile of brushwood, and as he put it on the fire, a viper, driven out by the heat, fastened itself on his hand. And when the islanders saw the snake hanging from his hand, they said to each other, "This man must be a murderer. For though he escaped the sea, the goddess Justice," that's one of the false gods that they served on this island, "the goddess Justice has not allowed him to live." Isn't that just like people? Everyone trying to judge you when you were in your Malta. Everyone trying to say, "I told you so. You know, I knew something. I could have told you about them. I knew that. When I was around them, I just felt like something was off. I mean, this is people. Like this is peopling, right? This is lifing on you. I mean, here we are. This is Paul here, right? Right? And so this is interesting, right? Because everybody wants to judge you when you go through your Malta season. Have you ever been there? Everyone wants to say, oh, I knew that was coming, All of a sudden, everyone wants to pop up and say, see, I tried to tell you about this. Right? I tried to warn you. I don't want to say it, but you should have listened to me before you made that decision for your business or your life. I told you not to date him. I told you. I try. Everybody wants to judge you in your Malta. Everybody wants to say something about you in this moment. In fact, can I just say it like this over your life personally and over this house, Fountain of Life? The world wants to judge you or hate on you when they see you in your Malta, but the fact that you're still here at Fountain and you're still serving Jesus is what has them so confused about you. It's when they look at you and they say, after all that you've been through and all the loss that you've experienced and all the trials and troubles and circumstances that you've had to go through in your life, you make no sense to me. I don't understand why you're still serving. I don't understand why you're still going to church. I don't understand why you worship the way that you worship and you pray the way that you pray. And it's because deep down inside, you're saying, I very well might be in a Malta season, but I know that my God is also with me in this season. So this is why I can't respect. Listen. You want me to come to Fountain on a Sunday morning and be quiet. I can't do that, because if you've been through what I've been through and experienced what I've experienced and gone through the Malta seasons that I've gone through, I've got to shout the way that I shout and preach how I preach and worship how I worship and pray how I pray and give how I give. Be real careful about who you let judge you when you find yourself in the middle of a Malta season. Here's what Paul does. Verse 5 and 6. But Paul shook the snake. Okay, let me back up here. Let me back up here. I'm going to change translations real quick. I know the media team, they don't have this translation, but I'm going to switch from the NIV to the TSV. The TSV, that's the Taylor Swift version. Come on, go back to 2014 with me. Haters going to hate. But I'm just going to shake. Right, okay. All right, we'll go back. Some of you love that. Some of you are like, okay, well, moving on. But Paul shook the snake off into the fire, and he suffered no ill effects. The people expected him to swell up or suddenly fall dead, but after waiting a long time and seeing nothing unusual happen to him, they changed their minds. I love this. And they said he was a god. I mean, Paul just went from a murderer to a deity in the span of this is people here, right? This is how people. This is how the world works. This is amazing to me, right? Oh, by the way, this is why when you're in your Malta season, this is why your response in your Malta season is never for other people, because they're never going to really fully understand what God's doing in your life anyways. Verse 7 and 8, there was an estate nearby that belonged to Publius. He was a chief official of the island. So he is a man of great influence and wealth. He's a politician of sorts. He welcomed us to his home. He showed us generous hospitality for 3 days. So he must have a very large home. He probably had an estate, because he's welcoming a large group of these prisoners and soldiers and sailors from the boat that had been marooned and shipwrecked on the island of Malta. And so they're finally getting warm here. They're finally getting some good, chicken noodle soup or something. Like they're finally like, this is good. And this generous man Publius, thankfully, he's taken us in. This is wonderful. And so here's how I imagine this going from this text into the next text. Maybe they're sitting there at a large table somewhere and they're all eating and they're enjoying and they're feeling warmth and they're feeling like, we have a little bit of hope. We don't know how we're going to get off this island, but at least we're here. We're alive, right? This isn't where we wanted to be. This isn't the season that I wanted to be in. And if you're the Apostle Paul, you're surrounded by all these other men, these soldiers and sailors and on and on and on. And then this happens in verse number 8. It says about Publius' father, his father was sick in bed, suffering from fever and dysentery. Okay, that doesn't sound like a big deal to us in current American culture, but in this moment in history, this was a death sentence for a person. So this man is on his deathbed. The father of Publius, the man who's taken them in to provide care and comfort for them, is in another room, and he's sick unto death. And so this is how I see it playing out. The text doesn't necessarily say it like this, but just indulge me for a moment. I almost envision that Paul's sitting there and he's enjoying some good homemade broth or something, I don't know, and all of a sudden word comes around the table. Someone mentions it, or he overhears, other men talking about Publius and his father, and he's sick and fever and dysentery, and all of a sudden, and I almost think that Paul just kind of lifts his head up, and maybe he even pushes his chair back a little bit, and I don't know, maybe he folds his arm for a moment, and he's just thinking, and he's praying, and he's talking to Jesus, and he's thinking, oh, now I know why I'm here. It takes us to our second point about faith, because number one, faith moves us from reason to revelation, but number two, faith will move you from misery to mission. Okay, let me speak this over your life, because some of you are probably in a Malta season right now. It's easy to get miserable when you find yourself in Malta, is it not? Miserable in Malta. Sounds like a movie. Sleepless in Seattle, like it's a sequel. I don't know. It's easy. It's easy. Like, God, I didn't want this. God, I wasn't asking for this. God, what I'm going through right now, I wasn't planning for this. I wasn't prepared for this. God, I would never want it for someone else, but I definitely didn't think it would ever be me. God, when I look at my life, when I look at my serving you, my faithfulness to you, like, God, this wasn't what we had planned for. This wasn't the master plan. God, this isn't what I thought was going to happen with my kids. I raised them in church. God, this isn't what I thought was going to happen in this moment in my life. This isn't how I saw it playing out, Lord. And so you and I can very easily become miserable when we find ourselves in a Malta season. And I want you to take hope and take faith and grow in your faith this morning by following the example of Paul, who easily could be miserable, but says now of himself, I'm not miserable on Malta. I have a mission on Malta. I'm not shipwrecked here in Malta. God, you have stationed me here in Malta. Like, there's a purpose, there's a mission. You know what? I would have loved to have come to Fountain this morning, and I would have loved to preach to you that your Malta season is coming to an end. I would have loved to prophesy over you, your Malta ends today. God has first-class tickets for you off the island of misery that you've been on. But what I'd rather encourage you to do, and what I felt like God told me to tell you today, is I'm not going to try to preach you off your Malta today. I'm going to try to help you get rid of and surrender your miserable interpretation of the current Malta that you find yourself in. There's a mission. There's a mission in your Malta. God already knows how it ends. These sailors, these soldiers, Paul, they're on the boat. They're preparing for a wreck. Yet God is preparing them for what's getting ready to happen on the island of Malta. It's like Paul's having this moment of revelation. He was just like, oh, wait a second. So God, I wanted to go to Rome. I wanted to preach the gospel in Rome. But now all of a sudden, look at what's happening here in this moment. And here's what Paul does. Paul gets up from the table. Verse number 8, he gets up from the table. He went in to see him, and after prayer, he placed his hands on him, and he healed him. Now I love this, because this is the Paul saying, I'm not stuck here in Malta. You're stuck listening to me preach. That's what's going to happen here in this moment. I'm stationed here on this Malta. There's a mission for me in this moment. Can I just speak this over your life right now? Whatever season you find yourself in, look deeply into this season. Look deeply with spiritual eyes and with a heart postured humbly before God. Look deeply and intently at your Malta season. I guarantee you, friend, there's a mission in your Malta. I guarantee there's a goal. There's something that God has for you in this moment. And if you're not careful and you allow yourself to live in complete and total misery in whatever the Malta season is that you're living in right now, you will miss the mission. You'll miss the moment. You'll miss why God has currently allowed for or stationed you in this moment of your life. Single young adult, don't miss the moment. God's got a plan for you. He's got a purpose for you. Right? Mom and dad, grandparent, like, don't miss the moment. Listen, can I say it like this? If you're alive in this time, it's because it is your time. And however or wherever God has positioned you in this Malta, there's a mission for you. Oh, let me say it like this. You're here on purpose and for a purpose, Fountain. You're here on purpose and for a purpose. Let me speak this over someone in the house who needs to hear this. You're not a mistake. And you being alive in this moment of history is not a mistake. You're not simply the result of a relational accident between two adults that happened many years ago. You might have been a surprise to your earthly parents. You were not a surprise to your heavenly Father. He divinely intended to position you to be alive with purpose, on purpose, for this moment in history. You're wondering why you're alive and living here in Burlington County and in this region of New Jersey. You're wondering why. God's not wondering why. He put you here for a reason. You might think you got here because of Malta, but God put you here because you're on a mission. You might be wondering why you're a part of Fountain during this strategic moment in the history of the life of this church, because God put you here. Because God wanted you to be here. Because God, in his divine providence, looked through past, present, and future and determined that you and I could fulfill the highest purposes of our life in him by living in this moment in history and by living in this part of the world. You feel weighed down by this moment, this Malta moment that Fountain finds itself in? You feel weighed down by this cultural moment that America finds itself in? You feel overwhelmed by like God, why am I here? I don't even want to raise my kids in this kind of environment. God, I don't have the strength. I don't have the wisdom. I don't have the anointing to lead this church through this kind of moment in history. God, I don't have the ability as a parent or a grandparent to raise my kids with every challenge that's happening in our country, culturally speaking. God, I don't want to live in this moment, but God looked at you before you were born, and he determined to equip you with the right personality, with the right gifts, with the right proclivities, with the right wisdom, and he divinely positioned you in this moment. Divine providence. Providence, to see ahead or before. Providence, the last part of the word comes from video, to see ahead. God looked ahead and he said, I need you here. I need you at Fountain. I need you at this point in the world to be alive and leading well. I need you to be leading your business and leading your ministry and leading your family and leading your grandkids and leading in this church during this moment. You're not a mistake. You're not an accident. You are here on purpose and for a purpose. There's a mission in your Malta. Paul shows it to us. He shows it to us. Right? This is what happens next. Guys on the slides, jump ahead with me real quick. Acts 28, verses 9 and 10. It says this, then this happened. The rest of the sick on the island came, and they were cured. And they honored us in many ways. And when we were ready to sail, they furnished us with the supplies that we need. Okay, let me break it down. You got to read the rest of the chapter in order to really understand what happens here. But this isn't Paul just healing one man, Publius' father. When news spreads among the whole island, when news spreads of what has taken place there, all of the sick on the island begin to come. And so Paul apparently plants a church and hosts revival services in a politician's house in the middle of an island called Malta, somewhere in the Mediterranean. And this revival, this is what the text says, it lasts for 3 months. And apparently everyone on the island gets healed and they meet Jesus. And I'll give you a little church history lesson here real quick, because the book of Acts doesn't say this, but other church historical documentation says this, that when Paul finally leaves, that political leader Publius becomes the first bishop of the Church of Jesus Christ on the island of Malta. Here's number 3, band, you can come. Here's number 3. Faith moves us, number 1, from reason to revelation. It moves us, number 2, from misery to mission. Number 3, it moves us from ruin to revival. It moves you from a place in your personal life where the enemy had sought to destroy you, and he had sought to thrust you into a Malta season to diminish or extinguish the God-given purpose that is living on the inside of you. What does that mean? It means that there are some times that you and I will face storms in our life, and the storm that you're facing is not even about you, it's about what's in you. It's about what you carry. It's about how God has divinely purposed and postured you in this moment in the world. And the enemy knows that, and the enemy's actually more afraid of the promises of God that are yes and amen in your life maybe than what even you are. And so God models this for us, this principle. Paul starts a revival. The ship was ruined, their mission was ruined, their journey was ruined, but it took them from a place of ruin to revival. You know what often happens in the life of a church? When we talk about revival, we tend to use that word almost universally to mean everything. But if we want to break it down real quick, can I take you to class here just for a second, right? Can I take you to class just for a second? So there's probably three words that can be better used in the church world to describe a move of God. Revival being one of them, but it usually works like this, and it usually works very structurally in the life of a church. Typically what happens that precedes revival happening is there is what we would call a renewal taking place in a local church. Renewal is that moment within a unique faith family like this, like Fountain. The renewal is that moment where there is a renewed hunger and a renewed thirst in the church to seek after God. And when we are corporately seeking after God, then we are renewed corporately and together as a community, but then we are also renewed separately or individually. Now, I've spent a little bit of time with Pastor right before the service, and he's been telling me about what's been happening here at Fountain, and it seems very clear to me just from what your pastor has said and even what I experienced in worshiping with you this morning, that there is a season of renewal happening here at Fountain. Renewal usually precedes revival. Revival, actually, here's the best way I can describe it for you. Revival is what takes place when the renewal that happens in a church begins to spill out of the church into the community. And that happens not only through like the communal gathering that we have, but that also happens through each of us individually. So like, because I've been in God's presence and I've been renewed, now I can't help but walk with that spirit of renewal into my school, into my university, into my workplace, into my home, into my family, with my children, with my grandchildren. So all of a sudden renewal grows and momentum builds and it turns into revival. And revival now is happening not just in the walls of the church or in the hearts of the people in the church, but it begins to happen in the entire community. And the longer a church seeks after renewal and then allows a spirit of revival to flow in them and through them, eventually you get to the third stage, which is what happens here in this text here. I would call it reformation. This is when entire towns and counties and communities change because the presence of God carried by the people of God into every place that they go begins to change everything. Can I speak this over you in faith right now? God has not just postured Fountain in a Malta season to do a work of renewal. He's done so because he wants through you to bring revival to this region, and then reformation, where you begin to look around in your schools, your universities, your homes, your businesses, and you begin to see, because of the encounter of the presence of God in this area, there's a reformation taking place in Burlington County. When I was 18 years old, I went on my fourth missions trip. It's one of the reasons why in student ministry, youth ministry, I'm such a big proponent of youth pastors taking students on global missions experiences. It changes our lives. It changes our perspective. I'm 18. I'm on my fourth trip. I was right in the middle or towards the end of a ministry internship at my home church, and I had graduated high school already. It's May of, I'm dating myself, I know, but it's May of 1992, and we are headed to Krasnoyarsk, Siberia. Okay, now I'll do a little history recap here for you real quick. It was December of 1991, roughly speaking, when communism collapsed in the former USSR. And now, because of the collapse of communism in the Soviet Union in that era, after 70 years of atheism and Bibles being banned and the gospel being preached also being banned, now the country is open for pastors and missionaries and evangelists and small groups of people like the one I was on to come into the country. We find ourselves in Krasnoyarsk, Siberia. It's deep into Siberian territory. There's a team of about 50 of us, maybe 10 or so from my church. Many other churches joined us. And so every day we would go to another school, another university. We would go, we'd do a presentation of the gospel. Some days it would be one big gathering. Some days it would be school after school, room after room. And about halfway through the trip, my youth pastor, Pastor Rick, the same one I played ball with, he pulls me aside. I'm 18. He says, hey, listen, Aaron, tomorrow we're going to subdivide all the teams up. We want to try to hit as many schools as possible. And so tomorrow you're going to be on a team, you and 2 other team members. An interpreter and a driver. It's just going to be the 5 of you. You're going to go into whatever school they take you to. You're in charge. I'm 18. I'm kind of freaked out by this moment. I'm okay, here we go. And we'd go in, we'd do gospel presentations. We'd pass out the Bible to everybody. For most students, it was the first time they'd heard the gospel. It was the first time they'd ever received a Bible in their life. We show up at this school. I'm low-key hoping that maybe it'll be one presentation, one large school assembly, and that we're done. But I find out very quickly the principal is going to guide us from one room to the next, to the next, to the next. Period 1, period 2, period 3, lunch break, on and on and on. We'll be there all day long, and this is a lot of pressure on this young 18-year-old. We make it to the end of the day, the last room, the last presentation of the gospel, and I'm kind of excited. We've accomplished our mission. I'm ready to go. And as we're getting ready to pack up and we leave, the principal comes over. She says to me through the interpreter, she says, listen. She says, right across the hallway here, there's an empty classroom. There's one of our students that's sitting in that room all by herself. Her name is Olga. She's 14 years old. And she wanted to come and hear your presentation to some of the other classes, but she was too afraid to come. I said, well, why is that? She said, well, Olga was born with a very large birth defect on the back of her neck and across her shoulders and back. And in a derogatory way, we would often call a person like this a hunchback, and that's the term that the teacher used that day. And so Olga's always in pain, and she really can never really walk. She usually is in a wheelchair. And sadly, a lot of our students bully her and make fun of her because of her physical appearance. I'm thinking, as the teacher is saying this, the principal is saying this to me, I'm thinking she's going to say something like, so before you leave, would you just mind popping in real quick, and would you just mind just saying hi to her and just greeting her? And we can do that. That's fine. That's not what the teacher said. It's not what the principal said. She looks at me and she says, so if the God that you just got done telling all of my students about is actually real, then I'd like you to go over there and heal her. Thrust into a multi-season. I was frantically trying to think of a reason to get out of this, actually, and she had her hand on my arm, and she just starts pulling me across the hallway. I'm waving at my teammates like, come on, let's go, here we go. And we go over there. It's little Olga. She's sitting in this dimly lit room all the way in the corner of the room, and we go over, we start talking with her. We're trying to meet her and make a little bit of a connection. And the principal's kind of in a hurry. She's being a little belligerent. She's like, come on, pray for her. Come on, let's go. Come on, heal her. Come on, let's see it. I want to see it. Let's go. We start praying for little Olga. We put our hands on her. We start praying for her. Have you ever had a moment with God? I pray that you have. If you haven't, maybe today will be that day. But have you ever had a moment with God where you can physically feel and sense the presence of God? Yeah, this is what happened in this moment. For me, oftentimes when I feel the weightiness or the heaviness of God's presence, theologically we would call that His glory, His Shekinah glory. It actually means weightiness. Oftentimes for me, when I feel that or sense that, I begin to cry. And so I felt that when I was praying for Olga. And so I just started crying, and I was like, oh, my God's here. And I look around after a minute or so, and my other 2 teammates, they're crying. I was like, oh, he's really here. Where 2 or 3 cry, there he is right? And so we begin praying, and then we get done praying for Olga, and she lifts her face up, and just tears had been streaming down her face. And she says this. She says, the moment that you laid hands on me and prayed for me, she didn't even know how to say it right. She said, I think the God that you just prayed to has healed me, because I felt this warm, powerful sensation from the top of my head all the way down to the soles of my feet happen. And so He must have done something. And now we're all crying. I mean, this is, okay. And so then she says this. She says, so I think that what she doesn't even know what she's getting ready to say, but this is what she does. She says, so I think that I should probably get up and try to walk now. Why? Because faith moves. She gets up and starts walking around that room. She's crying. I'm crying. The principal starts crying. The taxi cab driver, everybody crying out here. I had almost forgotten the story, Pastor, and 10 years later, I'm 28 years old, and I'm sitting in the annual Pennsylvania District Council meetings, right? We have, for credentialed ministers in the AG, every year we get together. Every state or district does this, and so I'm there in Pennsylvania, and there's a missionary up on the stage. He starts talking about taking the gospel and the Bible into Russia and into Siberia, and he was the one who had actually, his organization was actually the one that had organized this trip, and so he starts talking about how one group went all the way to Krasnoyar, Siberia, and I was like, oh, we did that too. That's really cool. And they were going to schools and they were passing out the gospel and they were preaching the word. I was like, that's awesome. We did that too. He said one day they went to one school and they, did presentations, and they met a young girl who was 14 years old. Her name was Olga. And I'm like, no shot. Then I'm like, it's Russia. Every other girl's name is Olga in Russia. Can't be. And then he holds a picture of her up and says she was born with a huge birth defect on her back, and they laid hands on her and she was healed that day and she walked. And then he says this, but more importantly than her healing, that was the day that little Olga, as a 14-year-old, met Jesus Christ. And now 10 years later, she's the leading missionary spreading the gospel in this part of the world. If Olga was here today, you know what she would say to you, Fountain? She would say, what you came out of doesn't have to determine what comes out of you. If Olga was here today, you know what she would say to you, Mom and Dad? She would say, what you came out of in your life doesn't have to determine what you came out of you. Your past doesn't have to be the greatest indicator of what your future is going to be. Your history doesn't have to be the determining factor of your ultimate destiny. If Olga was here today, she would say to you, maybe Fountain, maybe Mom and Dad, maybe single young adult, the Malta you went through wasn't even for you. It was for the next generation that's coming behind you. Maybe what Malta would say to you today is that I might not have come from a blessed family, but a blessed family is going to come out of me. I might not have come from a healthy family, but a healthy family is going to come out of me. I might have come through the fire and through the storm and through the rain, but I didn't die in that place. It's coming out of me better and bigger with more purpose. God did it for me. God's going to do it through me. Malta's talking to you today. My faith moves me from reason to revelation. Stand to your feet. Stand to your feet all across this house. My faith moves me from reason to revelation. My faith moves me from misery to mission. My faith moves me from ruin to revival. That which the enemy meant for evil has been turned by the divine providence of God for good for you and for generations to come. Bow your heads, close your eyes all across this house. If you're on the prayer team here at this church, you're one of the prayer leaders. You often pray with people around the front here in the altars at the close of a Sunday morning service. Pastors and staff, those of you that minister in this way, would you come forward now? Would you come forward and position yourself as you normally would? Face the audience here. In a moment, I'm going to give an invitation. You're here in the room today. Maybe you need Jesus for the very first time. Maybe today is your day to say, I'm taking my very first step of faith, and I'm going to put my faith in Jesus. Faith moves. And so your faith is going to move you today to walk out of the aisle and walk out of the area where you are seated at. And your faith will move you to walk forward today to one of these prayer partners, and they will lead you to Jesus today. So for many of you, maybe some of you, it will be a first-time moment. But I also believe there are some in the house today that you would say, I need a brother or sister in the Lord to stand with me. I'm in a Malta season. I've just got the diagnosis. I just got the news report. I just heard what's actually happening in my life or in my business or in my family's life, in a son or a daughter or a grandson. Pastor, I'm in a Malta season. Somebody pray with me. Someone stand with me. I don't want my heart to become miserable in this Malta season, but God, may today He give me a revelation. May today He give me spiritual ears and spiritual eyes to see and know what my mission is in this current Malta season. Bow your heads, close your eyes. I'm going to pray for you. When I'm done praying, I'm going to count to 3. And when I get to the number 3, if you're here today and you need Jesus, or you're here today and you need prayer because there's a Malta season you find yourself in, I want you to quickly and quietly work your way to the front here and allow this prayer team to minister with you. Jesus, I pray in your name and by your grace and strength that today you reveal yourself significantly in the hearts and lives and minds of every person who's here in this house and watching today. Lord, may you draw them to you for the one who needs Jesus for the first time. Let their faith move them to take what could be considered an uncomfortable walk forward, but every step that they move forward in this moment, faith will be blossoming and bursting in their heart. And God, for the person who finds himself in a Malta season, God, I pray in your name that your grace and strength would be given to them this day as we lay hands on them and pray for them. In your name I pray. Amen. 1, 2, 3, you come right now. Come on. Come on. 1, 2, 3. Come on, work your way up here. You need Jesus. You need Jesus. You're in a Malta season. Come on, I know there's more. Faith moves. Faith moves. And so you got to actually move now in this moment, because this is what faith is. It's a moment of action. It's a moment of movement. It's a moment of me saying, I'm not going to stand still anymore, but I'm moving into my destiny. I'm moving into relationship with Jesus. Come on, keep on coming. Keep on coming. You say, I need Jesus. I'm in a Malta season. I've grown way too miserable in this season. I've grown way too hard-hearted in this season. Today, God, do a work in my heart. I see you. Come on, keep coming. Keep coming. Keep coming. Don't stop. Keep coming. Keep coming. Keep coming. Keep coming. Keep coming. Jesus, we need you on this day. Come on, Pastor, go ahead and sing that song. Come on, lift your hands and declare this with us.